Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. The Maxon brothers, Nate and Aaron, here with you. I am Nate, and that is Aaron.
Hello, everybody.
And it's another edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. I already said that. This is actually episode 205 of the show. Woo. And this week we are going to continue our format we've been kind of rolling with the past few episodes where somebody picks a match of the week. We discuss the match, not necessarily the match, but little things from the match. And then mainly the talent involved. It makes for good conversation. And then also this week we have a top five, and it was selected by Archie Mitchell, who is not here. He's probably watching a foosball game right now, and that's fine. But the top five was top five TV series of all time. And at some point, next time he's on, maybe we'll have him run down his top five quick for us. But
nope, he doesn't get to. He lost the opportunity.
He's forfeited his opportunity.
Yes.
But yeah, this is a nice little our podcast, I think, is a nice little getaway for all the senseless violence and shit going on in the world that we live in that seems to never get better. So we're just here trying to bring you some entertainment.
Yes. Why, did something happen today?
No, I'm just talking about, you got the war in Ukraine, and now this shit's going on in the Middle East that will never end. Will never end. But anyway, that's not what this show's about.
Well, I don't pay attention to that stuff anyway. You know that.
Our match of the week, I picked it, and I actually picked it blind. I don't know that I've ever actually seen it. And ironically, it's like the second AWA match that's been picked.
Yeah, and I also was like, I didn't think he picked it blind. I was like, oh man, Nate picked this match just so he can shit on Ron Trongard.
I have some shit on Ron Trongard.
I know, that's what I thought at first. I'm like, he just picked this so he could shit on Ron Trongard.
The match took place December 27th, 1987, Las Vegas at the Showboat. And it is the Midnight Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, against what is billed as the original Midnight Express, Dennis Condrey and Randy Rose. And this match is, I don't know why I expected it to be better. And it's not bad. It's not bad. I expected it to be better than it was, which is why I picked it. I saw it I was scrolling through YouTube watching something else, and I saw the match there, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't even know these two teams had a match.
Yeah, and like one of the few notes I have is that Dennis Condrey's awesome, and like Randy Rose, I just think he's kind of basic, Like I don't think he set the world on fire or anything, but he wasn't like a terrible wrestler, but he wasn't like the greatest wrestler in the world either. And part of it, I think, is like just in your mind when you see the Rockers versus the Midnight Express, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be like the Rock and Roll and Midnight Express or whatever. And it's like,
yeah,
Dennis Condrey and Randy Rose was a different team than Condrey and Eaton and Lane. You know what I mean?
And again, I'm not saying that anybody in this match took a shortcut. I'm not saying it was bad. It also could have been a little more, what do I want to say, a little less 100 mile an hour than I thought it would be, because it was an actual television match. It was from the AWA TV show on ESPN, and it's for the AWA tag team titles. And you were saying about Randy Rose. We'll get into the stuff with the NWA too, with the original, with the quote unquote original Midnight Express and Paul Heyman. Of course, that'll come up in the conversation. So I actually do have something to say about him. But quick on the match, what I wrote down, it's 17 minutes of really good tag team action. I wouldn't tell anyone not to check it out. Again, you can look it up. If you just type in the Midnight Rockers versus the original Midnight Express, this is what's going to come up on YouTube. And actually, to be honest, the best move in the match, or most effective move in the match, involves Randy Rose. There's at one point Randy Rose gives Shawn Michaels like the haymaker clothesline where Shawn does the flipperoonie. Man, he hits him. If he didn't hit him stiff, it looked like he hit him stiff.
Which, I mean, it was probably a combination of the both. I think those guys weren't the most Shawn and Marty weren't the most popular guys back then with the older crew, so it might have been they were a little arrogant, I guess you could say. But like I said, the match itself, it's a good solid match. I think just going off what how the fans are reacting and signs and shit like that, I think because I'm not an AWA historian at all, but I'm thinking they put them out for a little bit or something. Like they won the belts from them, probably put them out because there were like signs saying the Rockers are back, and
that is probably it could even have been, and I'd have to get my time straight. It could even, because the Rockers came into the WWF in '87, and then it's the classic whole those boots are made for walking story with that's nice boots. The boots are made for walking, and then they got fired they got fired like their second night there, and then they went back to the AWA, and then they very quickly went back to the WWF. So they actually could have even just have been gone to go to the WWF, and they're back now because they had gotten fucking shit canned.
Yeah, that might be it too. I just noticed that, and it's funny because if Vern Gagne, I'm not saying he would have been able to compete with Vince dollar for dollar, but if he would have been more with the times, or B, smart enough to be like, I'm not with it anymore. I don't know what the fans want, so I'm going to step back and let somebody else do it, even if it was Greg. Because, I mean, you can say what you want to say about Greg in the ring. The guy, to me, seems like he kind of had a mind for the business. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes I think he gets lumped up as being, old or whatever, but his dad was the guy that was behind the times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because in '87 they had a pretty good roster.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
they had Condrey and Rose. They had the Midnight Rockers. Kurt Hennig was still there. Zabisco. I think was Slaughter
Sergeant
there.
Slaughter. Yep, Sergeant Slaughter.
They had a good fucking roster of guys, and if they would have just been, do you get what I'm saying? If Fern would have figured out this isn't the '70s anymore.
But look at the talent he had just before Vince's expansion. Literally Vince's roster 1 year later. You know what I mean? He just he was the one who Vince raped the most of talent. So he had the talent. He had the talent on multiple occasions to keep his company alive, and he just didn't want to.
They gotta have the Crusher, or they gotta have Bockwinkel. And I'm not knocking Bockwinkel or the Crusher or any of those guys, but it's you've been running with these guys for 20 fucking years. Your audience grows. You know what I mean? I don't want to say it. Musicians sometimes they'll get a bad rap with it. You know? This is gonna sound stupid. So don't whatever. An example, if you look at some of them kid, I don't know, not kid music, kid musicians, musicians that chilled like Disney stars, like a Miley Cyrus or something. They'll make this music and then they'll start getting outrageous or whatever, and people and parents and shit will be like, that girl was supposed to be for the children, or that guy was supposed to be for the kids. It's well, those kids aren't going to be kids forever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That child star is not going to be a child forever.
Yeah, it's I can't keep doing this kid shit. I got to move on with my audience, or I'm going to fucking be nothing, And it's just, as an entertainment industry, you have to go with your audience, and Vern Gagne would not go with his audience or with the trends. It was just, I don't know if I'm babbling, but this is what I think.
He wanted to present it the way he'd always presented it. And anybody that's ever been in business knows that the worst expression you can ever use as a business person is that's the way we've always done it.
Yes. The way you've always done it now is boring.
Yes.
And it's like the AWA, like I'll watch it and there'll be like these great matches. Like you'll watch this really good match or like a great promo. And it's because that's it. Like promo and in the ring is when the wrestler has control of their own entity or whatever, but the stories and the way it's presented, they have nothing to do with that. And it's just like, God damn, Vern. You had a great thing if you would have just went with it.
I'm Rod Trongard.
Yeah, that's a trouble. And what he was like, we're on the ESPN network. Did you write down what he said? Because I didn't write it all down, but it's like, my God, man.
He's like, it's like we're on the ESPN network, the all sports network. It's all sports all the time. Sports.
Yeah, and then he's like, it's like from America to Egypt, to Africa, to Somalia, it's like, what are you doing?
And I actually like Mick Karch, by the way. I do like Mick Karch, but I just can't. That Trongard, and then you're watching, and it's like, well, nah, it's all right. I'm just have to watch him in the AWA, and then you're like, ooh, look at this match. There's a match from Madison Square Garden between somebody and somebody. I want to watch that. I'm Rod Trongard for the World Wrestling Federation. Fuck.
God damn it. When you make Ed Whalen seem like Jim Ross, fucking horrible.
Rod Trongard is the one guy where you can look and prove that Vince McMahon just took people from Vern just to take people from Vern. Like, there was no reason to hire that fucking guy. Yeah. I'm sure he's still, I think he's still alive, and I'm sure he's a fine gentleman. I'm not attacking him personally, but as a commentator, Ron Trongard can piss up a rope.
And I think he was I don't think he was a wrestling guy initially.
No, I think he was one of those. He was one of those guys that was a radio guy, I think,
or probably worked for a station and just commentated. And every once in a while, you'll get one of those guys that's really good. And then every once in a while, most times,
Gene. That's where Mean Gene came from.
Yeah, Lance Russell,
Dave Brown.
I can't remember if Cottle was.
Yes, Cottle was a radio guy too.
And like you'll get guys like that, but then every once in a while, or you'll get like an Ed Whalen or a fucking Ron Trongard. Yeah, it's a Rudy Toot Hoot or whatever. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
It's a Ramalama Ding Dong sing song.
Yeah, it's like, shut up. Or Big Jim Hess, you'll get one of some of them motherfuckers. It's like, what the fuck? But anyway.
The match, like I said, this match is good. It has the fuck Dusty finish. I don't know. Like Aaron said, I'm not a big AWA history guy like he isn't. So I don't know if next week on TV they said the original Midnight Express were still the tag team champions or what. But they end the match with like a ref bump, and then there's another ref that does the count from the outside.
But there's not even the what you say the other guy's name was? Rich Chet.
Commentator. Mick Karch.
Yeah. The guy was like, that was like a 2 count, and there wasn't even a bell. Like I don't think he knew what was going on. And I was like,
either that or he was setting it up for next week's TV.
I think he was like, I think he thought that wasn't the end of this match. It was just like, and there wasn't like any good angle of what was going on.
Like, and they really don't even, the ring announcer didn't even say anything definitive. The ring announcer was he just was like, Midnight Rockers. Yeah. Okay. What are you saying?
It's like, if you're gonna do, that's the other thing too. Like, say what you want to say about Vince or whatever, but even the NWA, if they were gonna do a integral finish like that, it would have been caught. You know what I mean? That camera would have been right down there, seeing it. You would have been able to see it, just like when they do in NWA, when they do over the top rope stuff or whatever, and they wanted it to be like just a quick thing that like the commentators didn't even mention or whatever. They'd pan out far and do it that. Like if they couldn't get the close angle, they'd just shoot the entire ring to where you like. There's that thing where Tommy Young goes over the rope and Arn ends up getting thrown out and he hits him, and that's how he knows that he went over the top rope. The camera panned out so you'd see it. It just, I don't know. It's just like I said, if they were trying to tell a story in this match with the ending of it, they bungled it because you couldn't fucking see what happened.
Yeah.
It was kind of Bush League.
We've talked about Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty at length on lots of our shows because we're fans of the Rockers and we're fans of those two guys as wrestlers. So I guess the main focus that I'll ask here, this original Midnight Express team, Condrey and Rose, and I know we said Condrey and Rose aren't Condrey and Eaton, and they aren't Eaton and Lane, and that is true. My question was, when you look at, other than the initial angle, because it's fucking great, they did it perfectly, where the original Midnights come into Crockett and attack the Midnight Express and Paul Heyman and Jim Cornette and everything. That initial angle is especially for that era of wrestling is so cool. It was almost like a hot shot thing, and it was unpredictable and what the fuck is going on and blah blah blah. Other than that, though, are you, and again, everybody knows I'm a fan of Cornette, I'm a fan of the Midnight Express. That feud was kind of a letdown.
It was, and I think
I don't like Corny as a baby face either, but
that in certain aspects is fine. But I think what happened there was that was like started firing up, and then Dusty got fired, wasn't it?
Yes, and
so it's kind of like the guy that was it.
So then George Scott came in as the booker after Dusty,
and I don't think he liked it. And it wasn't. How do I say it? Bookers, a lot of bookers are kind of egotistical, and you kind of got to be, to be in that environment. And a lot of it's like, if it's not my idea, I'm gonna shit it. I'm gonna shit can it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They'll even do that with guys like Jerry Lawler. Both admitted, like, every 6 months when they'd flip, except for a couple guys, they'd be like, "See you later. You're not my guy."
Mm-hmm.
That's not my angle. So I'm like you wouldn't fuck with like the Golden Goose. Like they wouldn't go, "Oh, I'm taking over now, so we're not gonna have Lawler Dundee." It's like that both guys are gonna admit that's the fucking money, right. That type of feud. But I think that's what happened.
I guess you're right in that respect, because if you watch at that time, because I've actually, that's kind of a time frame that one of the time frames I've been watching right now is 88, 89. And if you watch in that time frame, I see what you're saying about the Booker thing, because when Dusty was still the Booker, they had the Rocket strapped to Sting and or Luger. And then George Scott came in as the Booker, and they pushed Sting down to the TV title, and they pushed Luger down to the U.S. title, and they brought Ricky Steamboat in to feud with Flair for the world title instead of having...
George Scott was like, "It worked for me in 1978." And I'm not saying that that's an example of it's still a good idea, because obviously they had three of the most classic matches. They had the best 3-match series probably this country's ever seen. But Dusty getting fired, honestly, is kind of not talked. I don't know what, maybe just think about it. But that's kind of what's not talked about enough about being like the nucleus for, and I know it happened a long time after, but it's like the downfall of that company, because after he gets fired, that's when like you hear about like, oh, George Scott came in. Oh, we don't like him. He's gone in like 4 months. Jim Hurd's here. He doesn't have a fucking idea what's going on. Oh, let's bring in Bill Watts. Bill Watts.
Ole Anderson.
Ole Anderson and Bill Watts. And this guy. And then
we're gonna bring Dusty back, but he's gonna have to be on a committee.
Yeah. Like Dusty was the wrestler that was able to like talk to like executives and shit, because he was charismatic and knew what was going on.
What I would say was the only thing I would detract on Dusty was by 87, It was time for him to just be the booker.
And I think he would have eventually done that. But
because you know when you're on your second go around with the Midnight Rider,
yeah,
I'm
I know.
just saying.
Like I said, I think he would have eventually done that. But do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
he was like kind of the consistency of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then get rid of him, and then they couldn't keep consistent after that. And it took him to get up to Bischoff, and Bischoff was consistent for a little bit, but then he wasn't. How do I say it? Like, he had a great idea, and that's all he had. He had one great idea.
Yeah.
Then he couldn't go any further than that. So just like like I said, I think Dusty was kind of like, I know, like I said, it happened like 10 years later, but
I kind of oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, we trailed off, but I think that's what happened with that midnight thing was it wasn't his idea, so he wasn't going to deal with it. Plus, I don't think Cornette and George Scott got along.
And then, of course, because of all of that, Dennis Condrey one day just said, "I'm not fucking coming to work anymore. Bye." So they kind of put the kibosh on it. They had Randy Rose team with Jack Victory. They got
that was the other thing. That was the other thing. The blow off wasn't even the original Midnight Express.
Mm-mm.
It was actually the new Midnight Express versus the newer Midnight.
Yeah. And the funniest thing about that too is it's kind of funny after that happens because it's the loser gets fired. The person that takes the pin gets fired or whatever, and Randy Rose takes the bullet for Paul E. And then it's funny because so then they have Jack Victory start dressing up in a suit, and he's Secret Service Jack Victory, and he's with Paul E. A couple of weeks later, they bring Randy Rose back, and he says, I got my lawyers, and I'm back. I had to pay all these legal fees and get myself reinstated, blah, blah, blah. And Paulie's like, well, who's going to be your manager? And he's like, who's going to be my manager, man? I took a bullet for you. And blah, blah. And you got to stay. You didn't have to go through all the legal fees and paperwork and blah, blah, blah to get back. It was kind of cool. And the crowd actually was popping for Rose. And so they have this thing where Paulie fucked him, and that's funny and it's cool. And the crowd's actually into him. And then the very next week, they bring him out and they bring out Jack Victory, Secret Service Jack Victory, but he's not in his suit. Like, they just put him in like a lame green jumpsuit, like that would have nothing to do with him being in the Secret Service. And then he beats Randy Rose. And it's like, what? Like this, what a terrible, like, and then they fight again the next week in some tag match, and he beats Randy Rose again, and then Randy Rose is just gone. This poor guy.
It's like, I'm out all this money, can't get a manager.
I keep losing all the time.
It actually is a good idea. But like I said, it was probably fucking Cornette or Paul's idea. And George Scott was like, well, I don't think it's going to work. But anyway, like I said, everything I've heard of that guy, he had a good mind for the business at the time that he was in it, and then it was kind of like, I don't want to say, like, the only person that really, really liked him, I think, was Vince.
Yeah,
from whatever I've heard. But anyway,
well, that's it.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, that was it of the match. I think it was my turn to pick the next match. I believe so. And I'll send you and Archie the link for it. But unless you had anything else on the match, I'll just unveil what that match is.
Sure.
It's from 1979. Stampede Wrestling. It's Stan Hansen versus Antonio Inoki.
Hansen versus Inoki Stampede.
Yeah. I was like, this is a match, obviously, that's happened a lot. But I was like, that's weird. Canada, Stampede Wrestling, Hansen, Inoki. I don't think we've done a lot of shit from the 70s either. So I know it's still 79, but still. And I don't think we've done any Stampede shit that I know of. At least matches.
That I don't think. If we did, it was a long time ago. We may have watched like a Bret Hart match or something from Stampede, but it was many episodes ago.
You might be getting more out of from me because I found this guy's got a bunch of shit. And it's like, this is
whoa. Ring a lam ding dong sing song.
Ding dong.
But that is it for the match of the week. Like I said, check it out on YouTube. You can look it up. It's the original Midnight Express versus the Midnight Rockers from the AWA in 1987. Good match to watch. Again, it's not a 5-star classic. It's not something where you're going to go, man, that's one of the best matches I've ever seen. But you're going to watch it and you're going to go, you know what? This is two good tag teams having a good tag team match until the convoluted, silly finish.
Yes.
Which in somebody's mind, maybe that finish was great and it got fucked up in translation. You know, you never know. It might have been, it might have looked great on paper.
I think it probably did, but like I said, the camera work was atrocious for it, I think.
So now, like I said, we will go into our top 5 lists for this week. Our top 5 list for this week is going to be TV shows. Top 5 favorite television shows. And I'm sure at some point someday we'll be like, let's do our top 5 funny TV shows or something like that. But this is just broad-based favorites. And I was a bad boy this time because I brought a lot of honorable mentions because it was hard for me to pick 5, but I picked 5 anyway. And then I think I have like 5 honorable mentions, but.
Well, I mean, TV's TV. I mean, it's something that's anybody that's alive now, it's something that's been in their life the entire time they've been alive. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. People say it now, like, oh, you put this kid down in front of these screens or whatever. It's like we were still watching the Muppet Babies and shit like that, you know, and fucking Fred Rogers.
Fraggle
Rock, which was fucking on one of the best theme songs of all time. Goddamn Fraggle Rock. Like, I know all the words, and sometimes I'll just find myself singing it in my head because I'm like, I liked that better than the Muppets. Like, that shit was Fraggle Rock was funny, but it's
underrated kids show, Dinosaurs.
Yeah, and it's just shit like that. It's like it's more now than it used to be, you know, just because it wasn't like in your hand the entire time, and sometimes you only have one TV in the house, and it's like you're just gonna. That's the other thing. Like I've hung out with friends that have small children and dated girls that had kids or whatever, and it's like the child controls the television. You know what I mean? Like, like this kids show will be on, and I'd be like, oh, I want to watch something else, and they'd be like, oh, you can't change that. They've got to watch fucking. Rescue Dogs or whatever the fucking thing is with the dogs and saving everybody or what, you know, that type of shit. But I can remember back when I was a kid, man, you'd be watching something, one of your parents come home and they'd just be like, you're done watching this. Click. You're like, oh, okay, you know, I'm gonna go play or something. Like, I'm watching this now. But I'm going a long way to say that just it's hard to just pick 5 shows because you have, for one, you have the eras of when you were of your age, you know, plus like just it's hard to just limit down to 3 or an entire lifetime of watching something just to 5 things. But I mean,
again, like I said, one day we'll go into more detailed lists, scale down lists where we could, you know, break down a different genre or whatever, and that you know, eventually that'll come. But do you want to start or you want me to start?
You can start.
Okay. Number 5. And there's probably going to be people that are going to go, wow, of all the TV shows that are ever created, this is your number 5. And I'm going to say, yes, it is. And I kind of judged my top 5 because I had, like I said, I had like 20. I had this list of 20 and I was trying to break it down and agonizing over it. And I kind of like my top 5. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make my top 5 just the 5 shows that I go back and watch the most over and over again.
It's kind of what I did.
Number 5 for me stars Eugene Levy, and it's Schitt's Creek.
Fantastic show.
Schitt's Creek. Tweet us on Facebook.
Tweet us on Facebook. And everybody has a little gimmick they have, you know.
And they're all funny. Like there's not a not funny character.
Like the guy Bob. Bob, when he walks up onto somebody, he's got that little, like, his character isn't the funniest character in the show, and it's not supposed to be, but he has that little trot when he comes up to see somebody. It's kind of like too, like we talked about with like Mike Judge stuff, you know, like King of the Hill or Office Space or whatever. It's like a broader version of it, but it's a show where it's like everybody on it's like, I know somebody like that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and the show is just funny. And the other thing I like about the show is, and it was your pick, so I'll let you talk more about it. A lot of times in shows like that, they'll run with the gimmick of these people think they're better than everybody else for too long.
Yeah,
they're not there that long before they realize we are in the same boat with these people.
And that's actually one of the things that I found so redeeming about the show was, you know, when the show starts, like David and why am I blanking on the sister's name?
It's okay.
Anyway, those two are so unbelievably shallow. And as the show goes on, the great thing that show does is they still are them in the ways that make them funny. But they, as the show went on, they added layers to those characters and made them not so shallow. And you know what I mean? Like it has great character development.
And like you said, that's what I like about the show is like they all adjust at different paces or whatever. Like I think Eugene Levy's character assimilates quickest to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's because
his character
also didn't always have money. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, and he's the one that worked hard for all of their money. So he's the one that realizes the quickest the fucking situation they're in.
Yeah. But I like the premise of the thing's funny they bought the town because they thought the name was funny, and that was the only thing the government didn't want to take back from them because it was worthless. Like, this is worthless.
Alexis, that's his sister's name.
Yeah,
sorry,
it's just a good-looking chick too. But yeah, just it's a great fucking show, and like I said, the characters, they don't make them, and you kind of had to do it with that show. Like, they couldn't be smug forever because it's like you eventually got to like these people. You know what I mean? And I just think it's a great show, and anything that gets me Chris Elliott on my TV, I'm cool with. That fucking dude's fantastic.
Yeah, just like I said, overall love the show. It's really funny. It's really good. It never jumps the shark. They ended it at the perfect time. You know, they didn't try to go too long with it. And I don't know if you know this or not, because I know you probably know that the dude that plays David is Eugene Levy's son.
Yeah.
But did you know the girl that plays Twyla is his daughter?
Yeah, I knew that. I read that.
Okay.
Like when I was like, oh man, that girl's kind of funny. I've never heard her. I'm down. Who is she or whatever? And I'm like, oh, that's his daughter. Like, Eugene Levy put out some talented kids, man. I mean, he's a talented guy too.
Yeah.
But I think he's an underrated funny guy.
Me too.
He's the only good thing about that Steve Martin Queen Latifah movie.
You got me straight tripping, boo.
that and when Queen Latifah picks that one girl up and hangs around that coat rack or whatever, like, that's funny. And she just muscles that little white girl up onto that rack like hook. That was funny. But other than that, it's like, this is a terrible Steve Martin movie. But Eugene Levy pops, man. He's great. He's like, you're fine brown sugar. Just like, shit that he says or whatever. That shit's funny. He was never on SNL, was he?
Nope, he was on SCTV.
I know he was on there, but I know a lot of people went from there to SNL, but I couldn't remember if he was one of them or not because I was looking at the rosters of old SNLs So it's like, I thought that might be a good idea too. Like, what's your favorite SNL roster? What's your least favorite? And I was like, I didn't look through all of them, but I was like, I figured I would have seen him at least once, because there's some guys who didn't realize that there's some guys and gals who didn't realize they were on that show.
Yeah.
There was a dark period, man, like between like 85 and 90. Oof.
Robert Downey Jr. was on there.
Yeah, it was like, this is bad. What's
And
Anthony
then,
Michael
and
Paul
then
doing?
if you watch it, because I've at least a couple of times I've watched at least the eras that I like on Peacock, because they have them all on Peacock.
Yeah.
They have the musical performances cut out and stuff. But anyway, yeah, you get through that season, and then it's like, you know, it's funny. The first time you realize, if you watch through that kind of dark time, and then you just kind of see Phil Hartman show up, right? And then the sketch, to me, the sketch where you know that the show's back. I don't know why, but it's Dana Carvey and Choppin' Broccoli.
Yeah.
Choppin' Broccoli.
I know we're not.
Like, they're back. They're back.
I know we're not talking about SNL on this, but like, that was that where they pushed Lauren Michaels out, and like, it's kind of like wrestling. Like, SNL was being run by comedians and comedically minded people, and then they pushed Laura Michaels out, and then a network tried to run a sketch comedy show, and it's like, that's not going to work, because you don't know what's funny, you know. Like, I was listening to a podcast the other day about a couple comedians and they talked about that with booking comedy clubs. Like, they're like these, like, some of the nicest people try to book comedy clubs, and it's like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, like, they're just going to take all your money, or, you know, it's like, or if you want to own the club, that's fine, but get somebody that's in the comedy business to book your people and come up with your stuff, you know. But anyway, I don't know how we got into that, but
we'll go on to who's next on your list. I said Chop. Anyway.
You did I only have one comedy on my list, and you just did one, so I'll do a non-comedy. Okay. And it's Deadwood.
I have never watched Deadwood.
You need to watch Deadwood. It's only 3 seasons, and then there's a movie that they made much later, but it is, and I say this because, like, I don't know exactly how it was, but I think it's the greatest depiction of what life is like in the Old West than any Western I've ever seen. And like, Western movies, they don't give you enough time, you know, and like, obviously, to show you like life in the Old West or whatever. But like, it's not it like, I love Lonesome Dove. Okay, it's like my favorite miniseries of all time, but it's the Old West, but it's clean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This show is not at all. Like, it's fuck this, fuck that, violent. It's just like, it's muddy. It just shows you what life would have been like back then. Like, you watch westerns like with like back in like the John Wayne days or whatever. It's cool, but everybody's like clean and their hair is
wholesome.
Combed.
They're wholesome.
Yeah, like he's got like his hair parted and this, that, and the other thing. But not this show, man. It's just, it's gritty. It's there's not a lot of humor in it at all. They don't really hold back on any of the writing with like the how racism and shit like that used to be back then. It's a fantastic fucking show. And Tim is he's the main character in it, so you know it's gonna be good right off the rip from that. But it's just like, every character's great, and it didn't really get an ending because it cost a lot to make. And then when Tim got up there in Hollywood and was able to, like, you know, do things on his own, he made that movie happen. And there's just a ton of people in it too, and it's just a really, really good show. And you need to go out. You have HBO Max, so just watch it on HBO Max. You don't even have to pay for it. It's fucking great. Like I said, 3 seasons, so you don't even have to invest a lot of time in it. It's just a great fucking show.
Well, I will definitely check it out. It's actually on my list of stuff to check out.
The writer, the creator of it, said something funny too, because they talked to him about it, and they said, "You got a lot of F-bombs and everything in that show," and he goes, I know. And he was like reading things about the old West and everything like that. He's like, fuck wasn't even like it wasn't even used as much as it was in the show. But like he's like, I didn't want a bunch of people like walking around talking like Yosemite Sam. He's like, this would have like people would have laughed at it, you know.
Right.
But it's just a great fucking show.
I'll just go with my next comedy. And actually, this one, I don't know if we have to expound on it too much because I think we might have actually talked at length about this show a few episodes back when we talked about something else. But it is one of my 5 favorite TV shows of all time. It's my favorite animated series of all time, and it's King of the Hill. I would put King of the Hill up against any other animated series ever created. I don't care. I don't care how much, and people can like what they like, but I would say it's better than The Simpsons. It's better than Family Guy. It's better than Futurama. It's better than any other animated series ever.
It is, and I put that on my side list because, like I said, there was a few shows that I knew you were going to have on there, and that's why I didn't put it on my list because I was like, I'm not taking that from Nate. It is the greatest. That show is such a great animated series. This might sound stupid, but sometimes I don't even think of it as an animated series.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it's just, we've talked about Schitt's Creek. There's not a bad character on the show. Even the side characters are fucking funny. And they give side characters attention, you know what I mean? And give them little gimmicks that they have. And every character on it's funny. And,
you work for Jimmy now.
Yeah, fucking Cotton. He's great. Nancy's. And like even his character, you could be like, oh, he's not very redeemable. He's mean to Hank. It's like that. His character doesn't hate Hank. That's just how he was brought up. You know what I mean? Like that age of a parent. That's how you were supposed to raise your kids. You know what I mean?
Even though he teaches Bobby bad behavior, he's a great grandpa. He wants to spend time with his grandson.
All the time, yeah. And like Hank, he's his character is so fucking funny and has one of my favorite lines ever is in that Halloween episode when she's quoting the Bible at him and he's like, "Get out of my house, Exodus."
Yeah.
One of my favorite fucking lines ever in a show. And I keep feeling like I'm over talking to you on your shit, but Peggy, my favorite thing she ever did was when Lucky shows up for the first time and she's like, "Don't have a whispery mustache. Don't have a whispery mustache." And he turns around, it's got a whispery mustache.
She's the heel in that show.
Yeah.
Peggy's she's so fucking full of herself. Like when you watch the show through like the 20th time, like I have, like you're like, man, Peggy Hill's kind of a piece of shit. She's an arrogant. She's all about herself. Like everything's about Peggy. It's even spaghetti and meatballs. I like that when she's like, not even spaghetti and meatballs. He's like, well, I like it, but it's just noodles with sauce. He's like trying to let her down gently, but it's like it's just spaghetti.
when he's describing the boy band show or whatever, and like they see him dancing, all quiet. He's just like getting it. They're like, what is going on over there? I got Hank. When he gets his new butt or whatever.
Yeah.
The show is so fucking funny. John Redcorn, what is that? What are they? Chocolate Mountain Fudge Cake or whatever?
Yeah.
And you don't get much. And I know everybody loves Bill or whatever, but I don't think you get much better than fucking Dale, his character. I don't know what they're going to do with that because they said they're bringing it back.
I don't know if that dude recorded. I don't know how far they were into recording before the strike and stuff happened. So I'm actually not sure what's up with that.
I don't want anybody else to do Dale's voice other than that guy. And then, I mean, Stephen Root, he's still alive, so obviously Bill will live on. But it's such a great fucking show. Like I said, there's not a bad character on the entire thing.
What's next on your list?
I'll go with my comedy, and it is Chappelle Show.
All right.
I can watch the Chappelle Show as many times as I want, and I will still laugh. And it has some of my favorite sketches of all time on it, and it was never bad. And it came out when I was like in my middle teens or whatever. So it was like, I think that's when a comedy like that, it's like that was our guy. You know what I mean? Like, like SNL was starting to become like, you know, the corporate or whatever. You know what I mean? And Mad TV kind of tried to knock SNL on their ear, but they didn't do it near as well as fucking Chappelle did. And him and Brennan and all his writers, I think they were top notch above everybody else. And it was a fucking show that it would do like the silliest goddamn thing, but it would make you think too. Yeah. There's not a lot of sketch comedy that does that. Like, who thinks, oh, let's have a black white supremacist that's blind and doesn't know that he's black?
And that's how we're
going to introduce ourselves to the world. Is here's the black white supremacist that's blind.
And that is why I always compare, because you know who would have come up with that? Mel Brooks, George Carlin, or Richard Pryor. That's who would have come up with it. And that's why I always say, like, Chappelle, he's one of those guys. When I talk about comedians, a lot of times when people ask me who are your favorite, he's one of those few that I don't bring up as a comedian, because it's almost like calling him a comedian is a downgrade, like a Carlin or a Pryor, you know, just those guys that are just, or Mel Brooks is a writer and an actor and stuff. Those guys that are just up in this air where you're like, that's a fucking given. Like, you know what I mean? Like that, you know, anyway.
How many other, like, I've heard multiple comedians on shows and stuff saying they went to see Dave or something that Dave was at, and they were like, oh no, I'm not going to go back and see Dave. Like, no. You know, it's like comedians are like wrestlers, where if there's a show, they just feel free to go back there and talk to everybody. You know what I mean? Because we're all on the same level, and these other comedians are like, nah, I'm not going to bother Dave. Like, no. But just like, that show was so fucking great. And even like the throwaway skits were better than anybody else. They have this one where it's like Tupac and Dave's doing Tupac's voice, obviously, but it's like, you know, like when Tupac died, he kept releasing music.
Yeah.
People thought he was still alive because like the music was like relevant to what was going on in the world at this point, but he was just rapping kind of about broad subjects. Well, there's this skit where the song starts and he is rapping about things that are going on in the club as it's happening. And it's just like, it might sound stupid like describing it, but when you watch it, you're like, this is fucking genius. And like, I know it wasn't all him. Brennan was the main contributor to it too, but it's just the black white supremacists, the N-word family, the Player Haters Club, copy that or whatever. Just the fucking racial draft is one of the funniest things I've ever fucking seen in my life. Like the Chinese people, the Chinese contingent, they're like, we draft the Wu-Tang Clan, and like Wu-Tang Clan's Chinese now, and they're like, konnichiwa bitches and shit like that. And it's like actually Wu-Tang Clan. It's like, it's great shit. And something else that he would do was at the end of it, he'd have an artist on there, like a rap artist or whatever, that he wanted to get attention to, like Kanye West. You wouldn't have Kanye West as big as he is now if it wouldn't have been for Chappelle. Chappelle put him on his fucking show and got him over, you know. And it's just, it's a great fucking show, and I can't talk about a lot of the skits on it just because it's not some words that I want to use on a podcast, but like I said, it wasn't a show where, how do I say it? Like, you don't have to be from the African American culture to like it, or to understand the jokes. You don't have to be from the city or have a city upbringing to like it. It's just, I've met people before that were like, I didn't like the Chappelle Show. It's like, how do you not like the fucking Chappelle Show? It's the greatest fucking thing that Comedy Central ever made, and it's the greatest sketch comedy show ever. It's fucking great.
All right, so my next show, and the next three are probably, I don't know if I know a couple of them might be on your list. I don't know. We'll see, because you get to nut cutting time, and it's like, man, you can't deny these shows.
Yeah.
The next one on my list that I know is on your list is Breaking Bad.
Yeah, Breaking Bad changed television. I'm just putting that out there. It changed the way television's made. It changed the way it changed the way it's released. Everything. Like, I don't think Netflix would have been as successful as it was without fucking Breaking Bad. You know what I mean? Because they'd still release it on TV, but they'd just dump it on Netflix. You know what I mean? And because not everybody, it was a weird time where not everybody had streaming, internet, this, that, you know what I mean? Right. And it was when Netflix first started doing the streaming shit. And Breaking Bad was like their thing, and I think it just recently got taken away from them. But it's one of the greatest fucking stories ever told on television too, and it's violent as shit. But it's still funny. Like, there's still funny shit that happens on it, and like, it'll be something violent, but it'll still be funny, Yes. And if that makes sense, because it's like the fish out of water story of Walter being with these people, and it's insane. Like, his character is fantastic. Where at first
we talked about earlier with the comedy show of Schitt's Creek with character development, the character development of those characters on that show, especially Walter.
Yeah,
because by the end of the show,
asshole by the end of the show.
Yeah, he's a bastard by the end of the show. Yes,
and an uncaring son of a bitch. And the only thing he cares about by the end of his show is his kids. I don't even think he cares about his wife by the end of it. And it's just, I mean, the pizza on the roof is one of the funniest things that's ever been on television, ever.
Yes.
He gets so frustrated with things that pizza, and that pizza lands right up on the roof. And I watched the fucking documentary about Breaking Bad, and Bryan Cranston did that in one shot. You know that? Yes. He flung that fucking pizza and landed up on that roof, and they were like, "That's it. Like, we're not even gonna do it again. It ain't gonna get any better than that." And it's a great fucking story. All the side characters are good. When a lot of times in shows, like when a character bites it or whatever, I'm just like, okay, that character's gone now. But like, you feel it when Hank dies. You're like, God damn it,
Mm-hmm.
And it's got the ending's fantastic, and it's just great.
And also another attribute to that show, and a testament to the characters and the writing of that show, is very rarely, and I'm not saying they're all always bad, but very rarely does a show have a spin-off that is pretty much just as amazing as the original. And Better Call Saul is probably the greatest spin-off in TV history.
Yeah. And it's just, that's really great. And I didn't like the Pinkman movie very much, but I just, like, TV wise, I don't think you get much better than it. And like I said, it's just a show that I can go back and I can rewatch it, not every month or whatever, but there'll be like a year will go by or whatever. And I'm like, everything I'm watching's done. So I'm like, well, I'll put in Breaking Bad. And like I said, Bryan Cranston's great. Have you ever watched Your Honor?
No.
On HBO Max? I just started watching it. It's really good. Just kind of a side note. I mean, it obviously has nothing to do with Breaking Bad, but it's a great show. And like I said, I think it's one of the best told stories in television history.
And Gus is one of the greatest heels in television history.
Oh, yeah. It goes out exactly how he should.
Yep.
I love for like a minute when he walks out of that room, you're like, man, if anybody would have walked out of the room blowing up like that and nothing happened to him, it'd be Gus. And then they over, you're like, holy shit. That's the thing about that show, too, man. There's not a lot of shows where I'm sitting in my house and I just go, holy shit. But Saul does it when they kill Howard at the end. You know, when they shoot him and he hits his head on that fucking table. I was like, oh my God. I did not see that coming. But Breaking Bad, like, and it's not even just one every season. Like, there will be multiple times in multiple seasons where you're like, holy shit. Like when he runs over the gangbangers with his fucking hatchback or whatever, and he's like, run. And Pinkman's just staring at it like, holy shit, you know? And it's got one of my favorite shootout scenes ever is when Hank's in that supermarket parking lot and he's shooting it out with the twins. It's just like, I might end up having to watch it again. But like I said, there's never been a show where I've just been like, holy shit. And it's a fantastic show. I like when he beats the shit out of those guys in the fucking clothing store for making fun of his kid. It's just like, it's all of it's good.
Yes, it is.
And it has one of my favorite insults that I've ever heard somebody say to another person. And we worked with this guy, and he had like a scruffy white beard or like grayish white beard. His hair was all unkempt and stuff like that. And he said something to this guy, Adam, that I used to work with. He said something rude to him or whatever. And he just this Adam guy was just like, you look like Walter White when everything went wrong. I was like, that's fucking funny. I was the only person that laughed, and I was like, that's a great fucking insightful joke. Like at that moment, he looked at that guy and was like, you look like Walter White at the end. Like, so he just told him, you look like Walter White when everything went wrong.
Well, what you got next?
It's going to be on both of our lists, so I might as well just say it. Justified. I don't know.
Actually, Justified isn't on my top 5. It's on my honorable mentions.
Okay. Yeah, Justified, and we got to get back into doing our show now that your wedding stuff's all done and everything. Not your wedding, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I just think it's a great fucking show, and obviously I think it's a great fucking show. It wouldn't be on my top 5 list, but it's kind of like what I was saying with Breaking Bad, where it tells a great story, and from beginning to end, and it's just like I said, it's. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. It's almost the same way I describe Breaking Bad, where, I mean, it's not like holy shit moments every episode, but at least once a season you get a holy shit moment, and it's a great fucking story, and it ends the way that's one of the main things with me for a show. It's got to end the way it's supposed to fucking end. Like, I've watched shows before where I'm like, this show's fantastic, and then it ends, and I'm like, that ruined it for me. Mm-hmm. You know, not necessarily saying I'll never watch this show again, but like I love Dexter, but Dexter ended horribly. It was a stupid fucking ending. And the only show that's ever done an ending where I'm like, okay, I get that, is going to be one that's probably on your list, so I won't talk about it right now. But Justified has a great beginning. It's got a great middle. It's got a great end. Every character is great.
And like Aaron said, if you want to hear our in-depth opinions on the show, listen to the Justicast, as we're going through every episode of Justified. So I'll go with, because I obviously I know what you're going to say. Like, how many do you have left on your 5?
I have 1.
Okay, and I know what it's going to be. So I will save that one. I will save that one for you. My number one favorite television show of all time is The West Wing. The West Wing, in my opinion, is the greatest television show ever made. It's the greatest television show ever written. It's the greatest television show ever acted. It's my favorite TV show. It's literally The West Wing gets watched in my house 2 to 3 times a year all the way through.
It was in my honorable mentions because I knew it would be on your list. And it is a very well, I should say, it is a very well written show. It is a tremendously written show. And there's only one small gripe that I have with it, and it's not even an important thing. And I think it even came that way because I think Aaron Sorkin wasn't even in charge of it anymore.
Yeah, he left after season 4.
I just think like the only gripe I have is there's like a scene in that show that's like completely out of place. And it's when I saw it, I was like, this show's got to end soon or it's going to be bad. It's when they do like Jimmy Smith's character with Santos or whatever.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He's on the campaign trail and they do like a mashup to Big Old Jet Airliner from Steve Miller Band. I'm like, that is not what the show is supposed to be doing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like, this is completely out of place. It's like more random than when The Shield ended and they did like a happy-go-lucky montage at the end of all the shitty things that they did on The Shield. Like, what is happening? Yeah, when they did Big Old Jet Airliner, I'm like, this show better not go into like Santos as president now because they're going to turn it into a fucking typical goddamn ABC drama. I think it was on ABC, wasn't it?
NBC.
They're going to turn this into a fucking NBC drama or something.
And
but,
and I will make a statement, and this is a me statement. Again, art is subjective. There's going to be people out there that go, no, sir, it was this episode of this show. To me, the finest episode of any television show ever is the episode of West Wing called Two Cathedrals.
It's the best acted scene. It's the best acted scene in television history.
That's my yes. I guess Two Cathedrals and the episode before it, or I should say the episode right after it. Anyway, it's like my favorite 2 episodes of television.
Yeah, that's the one where he yells at God in church or whatever.
Yes,
and then
they do the flashbacks to him meeting Mrs. Landingham, and
she was only on that show for like 2 seasons. You don't even realize it. That's how fucking impactful her character was, and it's just a great fucking show. And like I said, the only gripe you have is a scene from like the last season of the show. When the guy that created it isn't even in charge anymore. It's like, Big Old Jet Airliner or whatever. Like, what the fuck is this? But it great cast, and even like I said, I keep saying it because I'm a big fan of secondary characters for some reason. The secondary characters on that show are great, and the interaction they have with them, and like the fucking British guy. You're a bigger fan of it than I. Like, you're smarter than me, so you remember all the people. But
Lord Marbury,
Lord
Gerald,
and how fucking
he's convinced Leo's name is Gerald.
Yeah, and Leo hates him, but he doesn't hate him. But he just thinks he's annoying.
Whenever they mention him, he's like, "Oh God,
here comes this guy," you know. And John Larroquette, his secondary character, he's fantastic on there. There's just a lot of great fucking characters on that show, and it's well written. I enjoy it. I'm not even a big political person, you know what I mean? But it's still a great fucking show. And I've heard people be like, "What's pretentious?" And it's this. It's like, you just think it's pretentious because it's smart. Like, that's the other problem with television is if you make too smart of a show, it's not going to last very long. Well, that's pathetic.
One of my favorite little scenes in that show that in that show that always gets me is when Brolin he's playing the Republican nominee for president, and they just had that mass shooting or whatever. And
No, the Mark Harmon's character gets shot in the gas in that convenience store.
Yeah, well, but there's also been like they're talking about a shooting too.
Oh yeah,
and he's like, guns, man.
I don't know.
And then later on, after they have the debate, Bartlett's like, hey, guns, man. Or no, when he leaves that room,
When he
he's
goes
like,
to leave, he goes, you know, when I
just
decided
remember,
I was
just remember when I beat you in the election, guns, man. I don't know. That's when I decided to kick your ass.
But yeah, like when he walks in the rain to go decide that he's going to be president, like he's going to rerun or he's going to run again. I like the episode where he walks to the Capitol or something.
Yeah.
Like he gets out of his limo and walks there. It's a great fucking show. And like I said, people are like, oh, it's pretentious. It's like, no, it's a show about that's how you would want the president to be. We'll never have a president like that, unfortunately, but that's how you would want your president to be.
Mm-hmm.
I always hate the term of I want my president to be a guy I would want to drink a beer with. It's
I'll
like
tell you one thing.
People want to drink a beer with me. You think I want me to be the president? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing. I watched that show a lot during the last administration. But anyway, so what you got next? You got one left. I think I know what it might be.
Do you want to guess? See if you're right.
Is it The Sopranos?
No.
Oh. Well, hell's
it is
bells,
Mad
people.
Men.
Okay, Mad Men is on my honorable mention list.
Mad Men is my favorite show ever. I love that fucking show. And Sopranos is the close that I didn't put it on there because I thought Arch was going to be on here, so I didn't want to trump him. But it still Sopranos still wouldn't have been number one. It wouldn't have been over Mad Men. I love Mad Men for one. I love that period of time. Like that time interests me. Especially like I know we're not a political show, but like a lot of times when people on now will have like marches and be like done this or on that, it's like go back to like pre-70s and see what those people went through. You know what I mean? It's like it's nothing compared to that. It's just it's just an interesting time to me. Like shit was starting to like become like TV hadn't even been out that long, you know. And I like the sets are cool, and I just like the show. And there's not really the only thing I'll say about it, and it's like it's not even a negative because it's like that in life. There's not really a good person on the show. I mean, you've watched it, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like the only person that's actually decent is Ken Cosgrove, and he's just surrounded by these fucking people, and he can't make any money writing. The only way he can make money writing is by writing copy and coming up with ideas, because he can't make any money as an author, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's just like he's just surrounded by all these people, and he ends up getting shot in the eye. But yeah, everybody's just kind of a jerk on the show, but it's also they're also redeeming in a lot of ways too. And I just think it's a fantastically written show. It's got a bunch of characters. It's got a bunch of great dialogue. It's kind of like you're probably gonna tell me I'm wrong, but it's kind of like The West Wing, where it's a shitload of characters, and
yeah,
there might not even be like there might be a character that you don't even see for like 7 episodes, and they pop up and they got a little angle on the show, and it's just. And like I said, it ended great. I love a show with a good fucking ending, and one of my favorite things is when they kick him out. They kick Don out, you know, because he deserved to get kicked out, but like he has a great character development too. Because at first, like the drinking and the womanizing and all that's supposed to be endearing to it, and then the more he gets into it, the harder his life gets, and he's sleeping all the fucking time. But anyway, they kick him out and they show you his backstory or whatever, where he lived in a whorehouse and this, that, and anything. And he takes his kids and show them like they've thrown him out, but he's made the decision he's going to come back. But he takes his kids to his old house and they're standing in front of it and they're like, "Dad, what is this?" And he's like, "This is where I'm from. This is where I came from." And it's like it's like a way of showing like these people, like Sterling and everything, they've always had money. It's like, I came from this fucking place. I'm not gonna let these fucking people hold me down. Like his character for the longest time forgot where he came from, because he basically took another guy's identity and wanted to forget about it. It is like this character had to like come back and think, okay, I got to remember what I did. I got to remember how I got here. I know I'm rambling or whatever, but it's just the story is fantastic and just everything about it's great. And it looks cool. Like one of my favorite things ever is when he's supposed to go get the cake for his, like he's building
I was just gonna say that's like one of my favorite episodes of that show, hands down.
Like he's got to build that dollhouse or whatever, and he's drinking beers before it even starts, and then they're like, "Go get the cake," and then he's supposed to go get the cake, but then he just keeps on driving, and then he's just eating a cake, looking at the ocean, eating his cake. It's fucking great. But anyway, Mad Men, number 1.
I agree. Great TV show. And the next show, I mentioned it before. If you want to hear my extended opinions of it, there's another podcast you listen to. Listen to me and Archie on the Soprano Cast. I'm going to bring up the Sopranos. And Aaron, your thoughts on the Sopranos? Because like I said, I'm going into depth on it on the podcast, so I don't want to beat any of my horses to death. But
when I said like Breaking Bad was a show that changed television, I meant in the fact that it was a show that changed it in the modern of like streaming wise and things like that. But that show legitimately changed television. Like talking about like a Mad Men or a Breaking Bad or Deadwood. A lot of these shows, you wouldn't have it if it wasn't for The Sopranos. And I don't know how much you guys talk about like the history of it or whatever, but it was crazy how it got to be what it was, because they wanted it to go on Fox. So imagine how bad that would have. It would probably still would have been good, but imagine it on fucking basic cable television. Not gonna work. Then he tried to sell it as a movie where it was just like about Tony and his mom, and and nobody wanted to bite on it for some reason. It finally did, and just it's a show. It's a show that I can watch. I can go back and watch the whole thing. It's also a great show because you'll watch it and you'll find shit all the time that you missed.
Yep.
And it's another show where it's like, yeah, there's not really any good people on this show, but like Bobby, he's all right, as a dude. But most of them are But I just, like I said, it's a show where you got to get past the fact that none of these people are very redeeming, but they're all great fucking characters. And
yes,
I hate when people complain about the end. People bitch about that.
I do too.
They've come out and said now that he actually did get shot, but it's like, what's his name? David Chase. That's who created it, right? That was his thing. He was like, why would you want, like, he's like, I ended it like that because, like, you've watched this guy for what was it, 7 seasons?
8
seasons?
I think it was either 7 or 8. I can't remember off the top of my head.
He's like, you've been watching this guy for 7 or 8 seasons and you want to see him dead? Like, that's the last scene you want to see is like him both dead. It's like, whatever. Right. Like, the only 2 people I don't think they ever showed like their actual death were Tony and Adriana. Everybody else died on camera.
Yeah.
But I guess she was a good person. Her character wasn't really bad, I think.
Nah, she had some bad moments, but they all did. It's the lifestyle. But Yeah, The Sopranos is a fucking fantastic show. And like I said, listen to Soprano Cast with me and Arch to hear my in-depth thoughts on each and every episode of the show as we go through it episode by episode. So real quick, I just want to give, because I have a couple more honorable mentions here, because you mentioned Justified, you mentioned Mad Men, and these are just other shows that I would recommend as my favorite shows that if I was going to tell somebody you should watch these shows, these would be some of the others. One that I wrote down, if you have not watched it, Succession is fantastic.
I haven't seen that, no.
Succession on HBO Max is fantastic. It was actually Succession was a show that I did not watch because I had heard it's really good, it's really good, it's really good, and I didn't watch it for like it's when it first came out or its original run at all. I watched it after the entire show was over because I was like, I need something to watch. I'll check out this Succession thing. I'll check out an episode, see if I like it, an episode or two. And then I wound up binging the whole season, first season in a day. I got addicted to the fucking show quick as shit. The acting's great. The story's great. It definitely suggests Succession. I also suggest a show, if you have not ever seen it, folks, called Firefly.
I've never seen Firefly. Is it on only one season?
Firefly is it's like a season and a half, I guess.
Okay.
And then they that was another show that didn't get a proper ending. So then when Joss Whedon was able to get his stroke going, he actually made a movie called Serenity to end it all. But it is literally, if you like science fiction or you like Westerns, you'll like Firefly because it is essentially a sci-fi Western. And it's a really good show. And then the last show that I'll mention, Aaron knows how much I love this show, Live on Tape. It is the Larry Sanders Show. I love the fucking Larry Sanders Show.
I do too, and I almost put it on my list, but I'm like, it's like I knew you said with the TV thing, it's like we're going to end up doing like genres or whatever. I was like, I'm going to leave that for my comedy genre.
Yeah, that's why I said with that, I won't get too in depth because I'm sure when we go through comedy shows, we'll bring it up. But yeah. What a fucking show! What a great show!
And I kind of did like you did with the honorable mentions, but I got 4, and I'll just breeze through them real quick. It's kind of related to West Wing. I mean, not, but same guy. I love Newsroom. I think that's a fantastic show.
Yeah. So Sports Night.
Yeah. It's a great fucking show. Then this is a comedy, and I really, 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 really think it's one of the funniest shows that's ever been made, and it's 30 Rock. 30 Rock is fucking fantastic. And I think Tina Fey is one of the funniest fucking writers that's ever existed. And she was the last great SNL head writer. Mulaney did okay, but he didn't get enough time. But Tina Fey, man, that's funny shit. And I don't know if you ever watched 30 Rock, but that show is fucking great. And then another show, and
30 Rock's weird. Actually, now that you mention it, you know what 30 Rock is? 30 Rock is a show that I watched when it originally aired and enjoyed it, and I've never gone back and watched it again. So I might go back and watch it again.
Plus, it's got Tracy Morgan on it, and he's one of my favorite people, man. He's fucking great. When he got hit by that Walmart truck, I thought when he said he was going to sue, I'm like, oh man, Tracy Morgan's got on Walmart. That happened. Anyway, the next one is, I don't know if it's considered I don't know if you consider it a comedy or not. So you can tell me because you've watched it. And it's the most recent show I think we've talked about, and it's Mighty Gemstones. Or the Righteous Gemstones. I don't want to say Mighty. The Righteous Gemstones.
Oh, Righteous Gemstones is definitely a comedy. It's a dark comedy. It's a dark comedy, but it's a comedy.
Okay, I just think it's fucking great. I don't know why I said Mighty. I think I looked at Midnight, and for some reason that. Anyway, I think that's the most recent show we've talked about, and if you guys out there have not watched it, you owe it to yourself to go and watch it. It's fucking funny. It's dark. It's just it's a show that doesn't give a shit. Like,
and that's a show There are some shows that I enjoy. I enjoy watching them so much that I will wait until the season's over to watch it, because I don't want to have to wait until the next week to watch an episode. I want to be able to watch it all at once, because sometimes Aaron will be like, "Have you watched the new season of this yet?" No, I'm waiting for the season to be over. I guess I'm just more patient, but I'm like, I want to be able to watch it all. I don't want to have to wait till next week for the next episode.
And on a side note, the shoe scene is funny from this last season. Like, it's fucking hilarious. But that goddamn hologram with DMX morphing in, like their mom morphing into DMX, and everything is fucking. It's bananas. It's the most slapstick thing they've ever done on the show, but it's just fucking crazy. And then like the Annans have like karate chopping her in the neck. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
The sheer immensity of that explosion got me too.
Yeah.
I guess I just I didn't expect, they just made it like the biggest fucking explosion.
The one at the store, or when he drives it away to save everybody?
When he drives away to save everybody.
Yeah. I mean, they're both huge, but yeah, he drives away. It's like that's what that show is, though.
They're all just watching, and it's just like this. And then he survives, which is even funnier.
He's lost his leg, but like that show is, man. I don't want to say it. It's bigger. It's bigger. Go home, man. Like it's balls to the wall. It's fucking violent. It's funny, and it's fucking great. And then I have one more, and I should have talked about Gemstones last, because it's gonna kind of be a letdown. But it's I don't want to say it. You ever have that show where it's like, this isn't the greatest show in the world, but I just like this show?
Yes.
And it's gonna mean a lot, and you know, because you know me, I'm not like the biggest science fiction guy in the world, but it's hokey, it's completely unbelievable. They'll kill a character and then just bring it back, and it's Falling Skies. I love that fucking show. I don't know why.
Yeah, and obviously, for the sake of talking about this, like we talk about stuff being a different era. Obviously, I didn't talk about all the fucking Star Wars TV shows I watch.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
That show's funny because they're like, they'll kill somebody to get a hook, and then the next week they're like, oh, the alien brought it back. It brought him back. It's okay.
It's okay.
It's like,
yeah.
The show is ridiculous, and it's just, I don't know. I don't know what it is about it, but I'm like, for one, you can't be like, this is ridiculous. It's about fucking aliens coming back and taking over the planet and putting our kids into slave fucking labor with goddamn lobsters on their back or whatever. So it's like, it's like somebody saying wrestling's ridiculous,
right?
You know. But I just think it's a fun show, and it doesn't take itself too serious. And I think it's a fun fucking show, I think. And it's actually well done too. Like there's a lot of science fiction stuff where you see it on TV and it's just, it either looks too fake for me. That's one thing. So the other reason why I can't watch a lot of the Marvel movies and stuff, because it's like CGI or whatever. And they do have CGI on that show, but every episode's like a little mini movie, and I like it. It's a science fiction show that doesn't beat you over the head that it's a science fiction show. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that is that for this week's episode of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Next time around, we'll be watching the Stan Hansen and Inoki match from Stampede Wrestling that Aaron suggested. And we'll have another top 5 for you as well. Aaron, do you have any parting?
I was just going to say, for you guys that are listening, if you like the new format, let us know. If you don't like the new format, let us know. And if you ever have any lists that you'd like us to like talk about, like, hey, you know, we want the guys to tell us their top 5, whatever, just feel free to suggest it. We're not too pretentious to answer back either. So you can either message it to us, post it, whatever. Just let us know.
Absolutely. So we're going to sign off now. We'll see you next time around, probably in another couple of weeks here for the next episode of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. And like Aaron said, if you like what we're doing right now, let me or Aaron or whoever know. If you don't like it, let us know too. We're up for suggestions. we'll see you next week or 2 weeks or whenever the hell we do another episode of the show. And of course, keep on listening to Reliving the Extreme as well. Thank you for all the support for that show and the other shows here on the WNR Podcast Network. Have a great week, everybody.
Later, Taylor.